Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're diving into a story from medieval history that honestly sounds like it's straight out of a fantasy novel. It's all about how a group of foreign merchants became so incredibly powerful they were actually granted the rights of royalty.
So here's the big question that gets this whole thing started. How on earth did a group of traders from far-off lands manage to become so influential in medieval India that they were given the rights and privileges of actual kings? I mean, think about it. They show up, they start trading, and a few generations later, they're not just rich, they're nobility. How did they pull that off?
To get to the bottom of that, we first have to meet the incredible group at the heart of this story. They were a powerful and, for a long time, pretty mysterious organization known as the Anjuvanam.
So who were these guys? Well, the name Anjuvanam comes from a Persian word, Anjuman, which basically means an association or a guild. And that's exactly what they were. A super-organized guild of traders who came to India's Malabar coast from West Asia. But here's the thing, this wasn't just one group. It was this amazing cosmopolitan mix of Jewish, Christian, and Muslim merchants, all working together for a common goal.
And this right here, this is the key to understanding everything. They weren't just a chamber of commerce. The Anjuvanam had their own legal systems, they had their own security, and they had royal charters that gave them a mind-blowing amount of freedom. They were, as historians put it, like a state within a state.
Okay, so you're probably thinking, a state within a state? Where's the proof? Well, the proof was literally etched in metal. We're going to look at these absolutely stunning historical documents that sealed their power.
Let's travel back in time to the year 849. A local king issues this incredible royal grant, etched onto copper plates, to a Syrian Christian merchant leader. And this wasn't just, a permit to build a church in the port city of Quilon. Oh no. This was a foundational charter, a document that basically made the Anjuvanam protectors of the land, giving them real, tangible administrative power.
Now, here's where it gets really, really cool. On the plates themselves, you can see the signatures of the witnesses, and the diversity is just staggering. You've got signatures in the Kufic script for the Muslim merchants, in Pahlavi for the Zoroastrians, and in square Hebrew for the Jewish traders. This is hard, physical proof of this multi-faith international alliance, all working under one banner.
But the story doesn't stop there. In fact, it gets even wilder. Fast forward about 150 years, to around the year 1000. Another king issues a new set of copper plates. This time, it's for a Jewish merchant leader named Joseph Rabban. And this grant, this one wasn't just about administrative rights. This was about making him royalty.
This just shows you how high they had climbed. Joseph Rabban was given these 72 privileges, honors that were normally only for the absolute highest-ranking nobles. We're talking about the right to use a lamp during the day, which was a massive status symbol, the right to be carried around in a palanquin like a lord, and maybe the biggest one of all, the right to govern an entire city. A foreign merchant was made a local lord. It's just incredible.
So this brings us right back to our big question. How? How on earth did a group of traders become so essential that a king would literally hand over the keys to a city? Well, the answer isn't in what they sold, but what they controlled.
You see, while they traded in all sorts of luxury goods, their most valuable product, it wasn't pepper or pearls, it was power itself. They provided something the local kings desperately needed and couldn't get from anyone else.
They basically had a lock on the international supply chain for the most critical stuff of the era. Sure, they exported the famous spices and pearls that South India was known for, but what was more important was what they imported: the technologies, the materials of war, and one item in particular that was an absolute game changer.
So here it is, this perfect symbiotic relationship. The South Indian kingdoms needed top-of-the-line war horses for their cavalry. I mean, these were the battle tanks of the medieval world, essential for fighting off huge rivals like the Chola Empire. The problem was the local climate was terrible for breeding them. So who had the exclusive network stretching all the way back to Arabia and Persia? The Anjuvanam. They provided the engines of war, and in return, the kings gave them power.
And the Anjuvanam's influence, it didn't just stop at the coast. They were a key part of a much bigger, much more sophisticated network that basically covered the entire Indian Ocean. From their home base in South India, they pushed eastward. We find inscriptions and evidence of their settlements as far away as modern-day Thailand and Indonesia. They were following the money, following the trade routes, and in doing so, they were linking the economies of West Asia, India, and Southeast Asia into one giant network.
Over time, they became part of an even bigger structure,
You can think of it like a giant medieval multinational corporation called the Ayavole 500. It's a great name, right? Within this super guild, the Anjuvanam were the specialists. They were the maritime division, the experts in long-distance ocean trade, while other affiliated guilds handled the local stuff. It was an incredibly complex and effective system.
So if they were so powerful, where are they today? What happened to this amazing state within a state? Well, the answer is that they didn't just vanish into thin air. They transformed.
By the 14th century, the world was changing, and changing fast. You had these new, big, centralized empires in India that just didn't need to outsource their power to merchant guilds anymore. Then new players entered the game. European traders like the Portuguese showed up and violently disrupted the old trade networks. And frankly, the guild system itself became a bit too rigid, a bit too old-fashioned to compete. The formal structure just faded away.
But, and this is the beautiful part of the story, the people, the families, the communities, they all remained. They just integrated even more deeply into South Indian society. The Muslim members became the ancestors of today's Mappala and Ravithar communities. The Christian families carried on as the St. Thomas Christians, the Nazarani. And the Jewish families? They became the famous Cochin Jews, who treasured those copper plates for centuries as the founding charter of their people. The guild disappeared, but its legacy is woven into the very fabric of South India today.
And that leaves us with a really fascinating final thought. The story of the Anjuvanam is all about a non-state actor that became so essential to the powers that be that it was given the power of a state itself. So the question for us right now is this. What modern institutions are playing that same role? The tech giants that have more influence than some nations? The global banks that can shape economies? The story of the Anjuvanam isn't just ancient history. It's a pattern. And it makes you wonder who really holds the power in our own time. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.